Hello, this is Tom, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show, and I've been working on learning about DMR radios, digital mobile radios, and I've did a couple of shows kind of giving you an introduction into what DMRs are and how they work and some of the functions. And this all started when I got this from Retevis. Sherry at Retevis sent me this radio. And it's a DMR radio for amateur radio use. It's an adaptation of the business and commercial radio that they sell. So we're going to actually get into the radio today. Yep, you've been waiting on it, and we're going to do it right now. So it comes with the radio, the battery, the power cable for the charger, drop-in charger, a belt clip, and I think that's about it. I'm trying to think, and the antenna, of course, and a little thing you can put on your hand to keep from dropping it, and the owner's manual. So that's what it comes with. This is the model RT82. They have several models. This is kind of the, I would say, the Cadillac of the HT handheld radios. It's let me get some paper here. Oh, here's the radio right here. Now let me do a zoom in here. Okay, there's the radio. You can see it's about the size of your hand. It's got a nice big screen. This is color. And then I'll be going over the radio in specific. The programming cable to program it, which you can program it manually, and the manual tells you how to do it. But digital mobile radio programming is fairly complicated, especially to someone who has never done it like myself. Without the help of Doug, who I introduced you to in the last video or so, I would not have been able to get this thing programmed. It was, even though I've been an engineer for 100 years, it was just too complex for me. But anyway, here's the cable that comes with it that has a special connector that attaches to the side on this connector right here. And in this end is the USB port that plugs into your computer, and in here is some electronics to talk to this radio. So you have to have their programming cable, which it comes with. But if you lose it, you're going to have to get another one if you want to change what's in the radio. And they also provide, via downloading from their website, the programming software to program this thing. And with its infinite number of options and features, you really need this cable and that software. All right, so let's take a look at, let me get this box out of my way. Okay, I have a list of features that this radio has. This is the list. Tons of features. Now, like I say, some of these features are carryover from the business world, business and commercial radio. These are used by fire and EMS. They're used by forest fire people, rescue people. And then it was adapted to work, this particular model, to work on the amateur radio bands. Specifically, this is a dual band, means it works on two bands, 2 meters and 70 centimeters. Now, it will also receive outside those specific frequencies, but frequencies near those. Okay, specifically, it works on 400 megahertz to 480 megahertz. That's includes the 70 centimeter amateur radio band. Also, it works on VHF on 136 to 174 megahertz, again including the 2 meter band, but it goes outside that band. So for instance, in that band, the weather NOAA weather stations at 162 megahertz and up can be received on this radio, and this radio can be programmed to receive that. Now, Doug, when he helped me program this thing, he included not only amateur radio information for the channels, he included things such as the NOAA weather, GMRS channels, the marine channels. He had programmed all those in there for me. And so this radio will receive a lot of different areas of those bands. Now, it provides up to a 5-watt maximum power output. It has 2 settings for power. One is a high setting, one the low setting. Makes sense. And the high setting gives you up to 5 watts. The low setting will give you up to 4 watts. It has the capability of storing 3,000. Yes, I said 1,000. 3,000 channels or frequencies. Included in my radio now is, as I mentioned before, marine and all kinds of other things that Doug has programmed for me. It comes with this battery, and we take the battery off for 1 second. And this battery goes on really neat. There we go. I was putting on the wrong thing. There's the battery. The battery is 2,200 milliamp hours. Pretty hefty battery. Look at the back of this thing. This is all metal back here. Very well put together. And this just snaps in place here. And I push down on it. It snaps on. Very easy to change the battery out. The charging cradle, this just sits in there. Similar to other radios. It just sits right in the cradle like this, right out. You don't have to connect anything. The connections are on the back here for charging the battery. So that's pretty straightforward. This also, let me take the battery back off again. This also is weatherproof to a point. It's weatherproof to the standard of IP67. So the battery has a seal on it, which I haven't installed the seal. It comes with the seal. I haven't installed it. Don't planning on dropping it in the water. And this connector over here has this little cover right here that seals that connector. And that makes the radio waterproof. So you can drop it in the water. You can't submerge it, down to 100 feet, but if you just accidentally drop it in the water, you can get it out, dry it off, and it'll work fine. Doesn't even get into the speaker. So it's waterproof. But it's a long list. I'm going to go over all these because there's so many of them. Again, many of them are related to the business use of this type of radio. As Doug mentioned, it has a TDMA digital function. That's the time division multiple access function for using the repeaters in digital mode. A dual time slot for repeaters. It has dual time slot for point-to-point operation. So that means you can have 2 people on the same frequency. The firmware is upgradable. And they recently came out with some upgrades in January to fix a couple of things, and more specifically to increase the size of the database that you can have in this radio. They have 2 options. One is for increasing it to 10,000 contacts, and the other one is for 100,000. Now, I went for the 100,000. The 100,000, according to Cherry, you give up the record function of the radio because it uses those memory locations to store the additional contact information. And right now, approximately 85,000 contacts exist. If you go to the DMR website, you can download a contact list. You can download a specific one to your area or whatever, or you can download the entire one, which is 85,000 plus. I loaded the entire one. So this radio now has contact information for 85,000 plus people that are using these radios that have registered on DMR. Wow. And what it does is once you get that in there, if somebody is using the radio and you're listening to the frequency and the group that they're on, it will bring up their information, such as their call sign, their location, their ID number, and some other things. So you quickly, just looking at the display here, know information about the person that's on the radio. Specifically, you know where they're at, or where they're registered to be at. Okay, moving on. Like I said, I'm not going to go over all these. They have a function called lone worker, and I had no idea what that was. And what that is when this is used more like in an emergency situation where the person is going into an area which is dangerous and something could happen to them, they can put the radio in that mode, and then the radio requires them every so many minutes to key the mic to let people know they're okay. If they don't, then the radio will send out an emergency broadcast so that the people that are monitoring them can know, oh, wait a minute, maybe he fell down or is under a tree or something like that. So that's a function it has. Probably will never be used by amateur operators unless the amateur operators are volunteering for some kind of emergency condition, like after a hurricane or something like that. So that's nice to have that there. It's compatible with Mototrobe Tier 1 and 2, has single call, group call, and all call capability. It's both analog and digital. So you can use this radio just like you would use your older analog radios, your 2 meter 70 centimeter analog radios, to talk to people either person to person or through repeaters, analog repeaters. And of course, there are many more analog repeaters out there than there are digital, because analog's been around for a long time for amateur radio operators. So this radio will work in both modes, and you can just switch what area of the radio you're in and have those analog frequencies available to you. Now, what Doug did is Doug also programmed a bunch of analog frequencies in these radios for me for some of my local repeaters that are analog only, and some of the generic analog frequencies that are just used by amateurs to talk amateur to amateur. So this radio will do both. So you don't have to give up anything as far as analog. It has both. It will store up to 3,000 channels. 3,000 channels. I'd never fill that up. So I don't remember how many Doug programmed in here, but it was several hundred that he programmed in here for me. I'm going to skip down. It has a record function so that you can record your conversations, but as Cherry pointed out, if you decide to go to the 100,000 contacts database, you'll lose that function, which I did, so I've lost that function. So I have to reconsider that, whether I want to drop down to the 10,000 contacts and then get the record feature back. So that's what that's all about. It has CTCSS and /DCS coding, which is used for some readers that you have to send out this certain tone, or you couldn't get into that particular repeater. Has an emergency alarm, like I mentioned before. Has a monitor mode similar to monitoring on your scanner. Has VOX, which means it will, once you talk into it at a certain level, it'll start transmitting. It has TOT, which I had never heard of that term. And that is a timeout function where if you talk too long, because you're only supposed to talk for 10 minutes and then give your call sign, or on digital radio, you don't like to tie up the repeaters because these repeaters are working worldwide, so you don't want to talk for a long time. So you can turn this function on and it will stop your transmission, and then you have to give it a break and let somebody else get in. It's backlit, of course, the color display, keypad, squelch control, and an LED indicator at the top. All right, look at that list. That's all the functions this thing can do. Now let's take a look at the radio. Let's just look around the radio first. You have a lot of extra buttons on the side, on this side. You have these two buttons here, a button up here, and then this is the orange button is the push to talk button. These three buttons are programmable. So in the programming software, you can define what those keys do. So they can save you having to go to the menu, go through all the menus to do something. Like, for instance, I wrote down here what mine are programmed for is, I'll give you a couple examples. The side key 2 right here is programmed to turn the scan function on and off. You also, besides those two programmable keys, you have two here, P1 and P2, which you can define from a list they give you of things it will do when you push those keys. Right now, for P1, for instance, I've got it to go to the next zone. So I've got Pinellas County zone, I got Tampa. It'll go up and down the zone instead of having to go to menu, go to zone, list of zones, pick next zone, all that stuff. It's P1. So that's very nice. And the last key that is programmable is this orange key on the top. You can program it to do something different. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons. You can control what it does, what the radio does. Very convenient. Also, it has, right here, it has this scroll wheel. That's how you get around in the menus and stuff like that. I remember I had a BlackBerry cell phone that used this scroll wheel, and it worked very, very well. I hate to say it, but this one, for me, it's a little touchy. So I'm having to get used to it. It's a little touchy. So that's that. We have the on-off volume knob here. We have the indicator light, which can tell you a couple of different things. Again, this is the programmable button there. This is the connector for both the programming cable and a mic headset combination. Now, because this is a unique connector, you need to get the mic and speaker mic, I'll get it right in a minute, speaker mic from them or from Amazon. Now, you can get these off of Amazon, and you can get the accessories off of Amazon. So I think I covered about everything. It's a pretty heavy radio. You have the feeling that if you drop it, nothing's going to happen to it. It's really hefty. And I'm not going to do that test, I guarantee. And I'm not going to do the water test. I'm not going to do either one of those tests. You just have to take my word for it. Then, of course, it comes with this little rubber duck antenna. The other thing is that's unique about this radio is the connector for the antenna is different. It's an SMA connector, but it's the reverse that you normally see. So this on the radio is a female, and on the antenna is a male. The Bofang, for instance, is just the opposite. So you have to be careful when you order a different antenna for this radio that you get the right polarity. All right, let's put that back on to cover up that. And again, you screw this down really tight so that it provides that seal so it's waterproof. Snug it down real tight. Don't over tight it, but snug it down real tight. All right. So let's turn the radio on. I know you all been sitting there going, listening to me going, turn the radio on. We're going to turn the radio on. Okay, there's the display. Now, it's not probably going to show up very good on my camera. Try to get the camera to focus and get the contrast right. I apologize if I can't get the focus and everything right. But it has 2 frequency displays, and you can switch between those 2 very easily by using the scroll wheel. And then, I'm sorry you can't see it, but over on this side here, it tells you the zone, not the zone number, but the channel number you're in. Because each repeater can have separate, I call them channels, in that, for instance, they could be programmed to work on TAC 310, which is a nationwide network, 3100, and there's thousands of those. I mean, you can program each one of those in. And then up at the top, again, I'm sorry for the camera, there's a bunch of symbols up here at the top that tell you what's going on with the radio, what mode it's in. Like there's a, I know you can't see it. Let me get my finger out of the way now. Yeah, it's coming in. There's a square with an H in it. That means it's on high power transmit right now. And then it's got down here, you can give the zone a name. This says Dunedin test because we weren't sure exactly what the parameters were for the Dunedin repeater, so Doug called it Dunedin test, and it does work. And then there's the date, and then there's the time. So it gives you a whole bunch of information. And like I say, when the radio hears someone, it will look their ID up in the database and give you that additional information about that person. Pretty cool. Menu button here to select the menus and go through all the menus and all the programming stuff. And over here is the back button to go back one step. Numeric keypad, also an alpha keypad similar to what's on your old phone, your old cell phones, not your new ones. And I think that's about it as far as the features and functions and stuff like that. We will be doing some testing live. I have found that in my office, which is an RFI nightmare, I've got so many electronics going on here. I'm struggling to hit the local repeaters. If I hold the radio up in the air, and I'm on the second story, I can hit the local repeaters. But as soon as I bring it down to my desk to sit it down so I can just listen, then I don't hear anything. What I have done is I have a discone antenna coming into this room, and I checked the SWR on these frequencies, and it's low enough that I could transmit on it, and it would work okay. So I have an adapter for that coax cable that adapts to this radio. As a matter of fact, it's one of my adapters for the SDR, because SDRs have the same connector that this radio does. So you can use those adapters. I think that's about it for now. I've already talked 24 minutes. I will be doing more shows on this radio. Right now that Doug has helped me get this thing working, I really like this radio. It has a ton of features. Like I say, a lot of the features are carryovers from the commercial and business radios, and those features are still available in this radio, so you can use them. My understanding is it's certified to work on 2 meter and 70 centimeter amateur radio bands, so you need a license. It will and I haven't tried this, it will work on other frequencies, such as GMRS. I don't think it's certified for that, but that be it as it is. I'm not going to test it there. Okay, I think that's about it. If you have any questions or anything specifically you want me to show you, let me know. I will try on the next show I do about this radio, I will try to adjust my lighting so that you can see the display much better. In other words, you won't be able to see my hands probably, and you won't be able to see anything else I was trying to show you, such as the box, but you will be able to see the display up close and personal. If you enjoyed the show, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye.